One-on-One. In this video, we'll talk about fragments. When you look at textbooks and when you do search online, you see pretty much the same definition of a fragment. Fragments are incomplete sentences. Usually fragments are pieces of sentences that have become disconnected from the main clause. Or, like an engine, the main clause powers a complete sentence, propelling the reader through the development of an idea. A fragment missing this essential component stalls on the page. Or my favorite, it does not have a complete thought, it cannot stand alone, and it does not make sense. Well, if you are happy with these definitions, and if you understand what a fragment is and how to deal with it, you don't need to watch this video. But if you are perplexed as I am, let's go on and talk more about fragments. Because after all, what is a complete thought? How do you know if it's complete? And what does it mean it cannot stand alone? Is it gonna fall? And it doesn't make sense? You know, if that made sense to you, you would not be making fragments in your essays. Yet, I see fragments in students' essays all the time. If you're not happy with these definitions, let's continue with this video. So what is a fragment? A fragment is a clause that misses a subject, or it's just one dependent clause with a period at the end. Let's take a look at some examples. Always irritates me when a teacher talks fast in class. So let's look at the formula and see what's going on. So we have one verb here, irritates, and me is an object. And then we have a dependent clause here, subordinated when. We have a subject and we have a verb. So altogether they make a dependent clause. So what's going on here? We have one verb, but that verb is not attached to any subject. So we are missing a subject, therefore it's a fragment. So if we add a subject to the verb irritates, now we made a clause. We made an independent clause. We have now subject it. It irritates me. So you have one independent clause with a dependent clause when a teacher talks fast. And now you have a complex sentence. We just fixed one fragment. Now let's look at this example. Swimming along the edge of the river where it was not deep. Again, let's take a look what's going on here. We have a subordinated where, we have a subject and a verb where it was not deep. So that's your dependent clause. And what's going on in here? Swimming along. Swimming here is not a verb because it's missing the verb to be. So, and there is no subject here. There's no subject, there's no verb. We only have one dependent clause with something attached to it. So what we need is we're missing an independent clause. So we need to add a subject and a verb. And here we go. We were swimming along the edge of the river where it was not deep. Now you can always say we swam, or he swam, or she swam, or they were swimming. As long as you have a subject with the verb, as long as you added an independent clause, now you have IC and DC, it's a complex sentence. Let's look at more examples. Because we used each word 3 times and we made flashcards, it seems like it's complete. I finished my thought, because the problem with completing our thoughts or incompleting our thoughts, we use a lot of fragments in speech. So when I say, yeah, because we used each word 3 times and we made flashcards, right? I answered your question with because. I finished my thought. But in writing, let's see what's going on here. We have a subordinator here. We have because as our subordinator. We have subject and a verb because we used. And then we have another subject and a verb connected with and. We made. So we have a very strange formula. We have a DC here connected with and. So we're connecting a DC with an IC and fanboys. There's no such formula. It's a wrong type of sentence. We do not connect DC and IC with and, with fanboys. We connect it with a comma, right? So what do we need to do? Well, there are 2 ways to fix it. First, we're just going to get rid of this subordinator. And we're just going to end up with subject and a verb. subject and the verb, two independent clauses connected with a comma and fanboys. And we're going to get rid of a fragment. So now we have a compound sentence. We used each word 3 times and we made flashcards. Now there's another way to fix that. So we're going to keep this one long dependent clause because we have 2 reasons. Because we used each word 3 times and because we made flashcards. And now we're going to add an independent clause and say because we used each word 3 times and we made flashcards, that's to see, we were able to memorize the words before the test. And here you have an independent clause with subject we and the verb were able to. Another example. Now you try. Although they had earned enough money to buy a house. All right, so as I always ask you to analyze your sentence, you're gonna find subject and the verb first, and then see if we have any subordinators or fanboys. We have although as our subordinator, we have subject they had earned, so together they make a DC with a period at the end. And you know, one dependent clause with a period at the end means a fragment. So how would you fix the sentence? So you already have your subject, you already have your verb, and you know together they're making an IC. But if you add a subordinator, they're going to make a DC. So how do you fix this problem? Very easy. So it's very easy. You're just going to get rid of although, you're going to eliminate the subordinator, and now you have subject and the verb. And it's one independent clause with a period at the end, and it's a simple sentence. Our basketball team, which lost last night and could not enter the tournament. Again, it sounds like it's complete, it makes sense, our team lost, we couldn't enter the tournament. But again, let's look at the formula and let's see what's going on here. We have our basketball team, seems like a subject, and then we have subordinator which, and this subordinator is also serves the subject purpose. And then we have one verb, lost, which lost, and we have a second verb here, and could not enter. So we have, again, a dependent clause here, but this subject is missing a verb. There is no verb in this independent clause. So we need to add a verb for this subject. And so what we can do is something like this. Our basketball team, which lost last night and could not enter the tournament, discussed our future plans. And so now, in addition to the dependent clause here, we're completing the independent clause. Our basketball team discussed our future plans.